that the Turing test deliberately avoided direct physical interaction. क्योंकि अगर direct physical interaction humans के साथ होता तो आपको हमेशा humanoid ही बनाना पड़ता, simulate ही करना पड़ता human को, which is very difficult actually. By means of today's standards also, simulating a person and having a fidelity that to fool another person that the person you're talking to is not a machine but a person is very difficult. It can happen in Westworld, it can happen in some series, but it may not be that much easy to happen in real world sense, even with today's technology. So you might have seen that humanoid Sophia and many other robotic impressions that we have of humanoids. They are quite good. They're quite good with respect to what we had previously 10, 20 years back, but they're still not as 80 to 90% resembling to human beings. Okay, they are pretty much looking like human beings, but they are not yet complete. And that's why the Turing test actually avoided this. And please understand, Turing test was developed in 1950s. At that time, thinking about something is going to replace human beings directly as a humanoid or as a robot, that was only in science stories. They were only in fictitious stories, not actually possible with the technology at that time. Okay, the other school of thought which refers to it as the total Turing test. Okay, this school of thought says that we should also be able to have that particular AI to be called as AI, to have computer vision and robotics with it. That way there will be some sort of a physical interaction between the interrogator and the entity, and that will mean the interrogator cannot restrain himself to return questionnaire, but he can actually have some audio visual questionnaire given to that entity, and entity recognizes those visual cues or those audio cues, and based on its understanding of those audio visual cues is able to perceive objects, is able to manipulate objects and move objects from one place to the other. Maybe here we can think of a robotic arm designed for solving a Tower of Hanoi problem. We might know that Tower of Hanoi problem, which is a classical algorithmic problem, which even some humans find it difficult to solve, but school children or so it's like a tower of slides, one on top of the other, smallest one at the top and the largest one at the bottom, and there are three rods or slots like this, and you want to actually move all these slides which are there, or all the disk rather, which are there on the pole 1 to pole 3, and that is called as Tower of Hanoi. That's the classical algorithmic problem. Generally, recursion can be easily used to solve this problem. You can write a recursive subroutine to solve this problem. You might have learned this in algorithm class. If not, it's an interesting problem. You can visit. You just need to visit any website basically. You just need to search for Tower, sorry, of Hanoi. Okay, it's a good problem, good programming exercise. The code is very sleek when you solve this problem because it uses recursion, and we know that recursive code is always sleek, small code, clean code. Only thing is that to imagine how it operates is a bit tricky part of it. Let it be. So I can have these physical setup जहाँ पे वो slit वो disk and those uh, bars are there, and I have a robotic arm which is thinking to solve the Tower of Hanoi problem and also implementing it into the solution by manipulating those disks from rod 1 to rod 3 and get them organized in the same sequence in which they are on rod 1 to rod 3. So that is Tower of Hanoi problem for you. And if an AI is able to do this, a robotic arm is able to do this, you can call it as an AI. So that test then will be referred to as total Turing test. If I restrict myself to a programming solution of Tower of Hanoi problem, the steps to solve Tower of Hanoi problem from a computer program as an AI entity, I just pose a question कि आपको Tower of Hanoi problem with these many number of disks solve करना है. ओके एक ह्यूमन बीइंग ने उसका सॉल्यूशन लिख के मुझे रिटर्न किया और एक मशीन ने मुझे वो सॉल्यूशन लिख के रिटर्न किया, सॉल्यूशन इन द सेंस सॉल्यूशन स्टेप्स, then that will be the normal Turing test. I guess I have made the distinction between total Turing test and a normal Turing test. For the normal Turing test, you should be your machine or the entity who is going to be tested for being AI should have at least 4 qualities, and those 4 qualities is it should be able to do process the natural language in order to understand the query. It should be able to represent the knowledge that is required for solving the problem that is known to it previously. Third thing, it should be able to reason out, that is automated reasoning capability should be there so that it can come up with the proper solution to your question. And lastly, it should be able to what was the last one? Actually, I forgot actually. Sorry, it may happen sometimes. Machine learning. That is, it should be able to adapt to the changing scenarios, because we might have actually written a code to solve tower of an eye problem for disk up to say tens, and suddenly a question comes up of 1,000 disks. Then my algorithm should be able to devise a way to solve it in a proper manner. So that is how we can think of 4 qualities that an AI should have in order to pass the Turing test, the classical Turing test. Now, if I want to have an AI to pass a total Turing test, it should also be required to have quality of computer vision and robotics. Okay, here whatever these names are mentioned, right from the first one NLP, second one the knowledge representation, third one the what was the third one? Automated reasoning. Fourth one, the uh, ML or machine learning. Fifth one, computer vision, and sixth one, the robotics. All 6 are, you also know, disciplines in themselves. In themselves, they are disciplines. So you can think of, to develop an AI, we get to have an harmony between concepts that are coming from all these disciplines together. And that's why it is important to know that AI is not just a single discipline, but it's a multidisciplinary field wherein ideas from different disciplines come together harmoniously to solve a real world problem. Okay, so that's it about introduction to AI. I am not going to concentrate much upon the cognitive modeling approach, although I will refer you to read this part whenever I give you the book, access to the book. You read this part 1.1.2, then you should also read the part 1.1.3, 1.1.4. Okay, I'm not going to talk about much about this today. I'm going to jump to the agent thing. But before I go ahead, this is very important to understand. When I do cognitive modeling, can I use Turing test for identifying the AI which is being meant to do cognitive modeling? No, I can't, because अगर आप Turing test को देखोगे, ये बहुत factual test है. ये क्या करता है, क्वेरी करता है एंटिटी को, एंटिटी आंसर देता है, और आया हुआ आंसर अगर ह्यूमन आंसर से बहुत ज्यादा मैच करता है तो इंटरोगेटर फुल हो जाएगा और आप एआई एंटिटी को एआई एंटिटी मान लोगे. But you will never think of, or you will never ask the question. The interrogator is not supposed to ask the question, ये आपने solve कैसे किया? Not to human being and not to machine or not to the entity. A या B को C पूछ नहीं सकता कि आंसर कैसे आया. And that is the distinction between cognitive modeling approach and the behavioral approach. Behavioral approach is you show the behavior. Okay, how the behavior appeared is not important. But when it comes to thinking humanly, implementation of thinking humanly, or that dimension of the definition of AI, then we are interested in knowing how this thought process occurred and how we reach the goal or the conclusion. So we are very much giving importance to the explanation of the way the thought process worked out the solution. We are not interested in the solution itself and matching the human solution. We are interested in matching the thought process behind the solution to the thought process of human being, which may have lead to the same solution.